The Deathworld Response Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the command center of the dreadnought Indomitable, studying the holographic display with intense brown eyes. The massive warship hummed around her with the contained power of 3 fusion reactors. Outside the armored windows, the human fleet hung in formation, 200 ships of war arranged in perfect military precision. "Play the message again," Chen ordered. The alien transmission filled the command center. The voice was musical, almost like singing, but the computer translation carried unmistakable desperation. Chen had heard similar pleas before, usually from human colonies under attack, but this was different. This was an entire civilization crying out for help. "Analysis of the signal source, Commander Rodriguez," Chen said to her intelligence officer. Lieutenant Commander Maria Rodriguez gestured at her display. The transmission originated from grid reference 7742 Delta, approximately 300 light-years from our current position. Long-range sensors confirm massive energy expenditure, consistent with a galaxy-wide broadcast. Whoever sent this used incredible amounts of power just to get the message out. Chen nodded. That level of desperation suggested these people were truly at the end of their options. "What do we know about this void swarm they mentioned?" "Cross-referencing with our historical databases," Rodriguez replied, her fingers dancing over holographic controls. "I found something interesting. Archives from the Third Colonial War mention something called the Machine Plague. Similar description, self-replicating mechanical entities that consumed entire star systems. The Machine Plague was destroyed 3 centuries ago," noted Commander Jackson, Chen's tactical officer. Earth Fleet Command classified the incident. Post records were sealed. Chen had heard stories about the Machine Plague from her grandfather, who had served in Earth's deep archives. Mechanical entities that turned worlds into factories, then spread like a disease through space. The human solution had been typically direct. They had hunted down every last trace and destroyed it with nuclear fire. "If this void swarm is related to the Machine Plague, then we know how dangerous it is," Chen said. "And we know how to fight it." "Admiral," interrupted Communications Officer Liu, "we're receiving priority messages from Fleet Command." Chen accepted the transmission. Admiral Harrison's weathered face appeared on the main screen. "Sarah, I trust you've intercepted the alien distress call." "Yes, sir. I'm already reviewing deployment options." Harrison smiled grimly. "I should have known. The Admiralty is in emergency session, but I suspect I know what their decision will be. How quickly can you disengage from the Krillian campaign?" Chen looked at her tactical display. The war against the insectoid Krillian Empire had been grinding on for 2 years. It was largely a stalemate now. The Krillians couldn't break human defenses, but they also wouldn't surrender. "I can leave a screening force to contain the Krillians," Chen replied. "The main fleet could be ready to move within 12 hours. Do it." Full authorization granted. If this void swarm is what we think it is, those aliens don't have time for political debates. The transmission ended, leaving Chen with her staff. Around her, the command center buzzed with activity as orders went out to the fleet. This was what Chen loved about the human military. When people needed help, they didn't waste time with committees and discussions. They acted. "Rodriguez, I want everything we can find about these Zephyrians," Chen ordered. "Language, culture, technology levels. We're going into their space, and I don't want any misunderstandings." "Already on it, Admiral." "Initial analysis suggests they're a peaceful species. High technology, but no evidence of military capability. They seem to be some kind of confederation of different worlds." "Peaceful?" Commander Jackson frowned. "Then how have they survived this long against the void swarm?" "Good question. Either they're tougher than they appear or they've been running and hiding." Chen studied the tactical projections. 300 light-years was a significant journey, even for the human fleet. They would need to coordinate with supply ships and plan their approach carefully. But there was another consideration. Send a message to Colonial Command, Chen decided. Request volunteerships from corporate security forces and planetary militias. "This operation is large enough that we might need additional support." "Ma'am?" Rodriguez looked surprised. "We're taking civilian contractors into a war zone. These civilians are former military, and their ships are well armed. More importantly, they understand what we're fighting for." Chen walked to the main display studying star charts. When Earth was threatened by the Machine Plague, everyone fought. Corporate ships, private vessels, anyone with weapons and the will to use them. This feels similar. Over the next 8 hours, Chen watched with satisfaction as her fleet prepared for the long jump to Zephyrian space. The Indomitable was joined by 2 other dreadnoughts, 15 heavy cruisers, 30 destroyers, and over 100 smaller vessels. It was more firepower than most species possessed in their entire military. But the real surprise came when the volunteer ships began arriving. "Admiral," Liu reported, excitement clear in his voice. "We're receiving responses from across human space. Corporate security fleets from the Titan Mining Consortium, the Stellar Transport Guild, even the reformed pirates of the Outer Rim Alliance." Chen raised an eyebrow. The Outer Rim Alliance was a collection of former criminals who had gone legitimate, mostly. Their ships were fast and their crews were experienced in unconventional warfare. "How many volunteers are we talking about?" "Current count is over 300 ships, ma'am. And more are coming." The response was overwhelming. Chen had expected maybe 50 additional ships. Instead, it seemed like half of human space wanted to join the rescue mission. She found herself in the unusual position of having to turn away volunteers. "Select the most suitable vessels," Chen ordered. "Prioritize ships with experienced crews and proven combat records. We're not running a training exercise." As the expanded fleet took shape, Chen received regular updates from her intelligence teams. The Zephyrian language was proving surprisingly easy to learn. Their computers were designed to interface with thought, which made communication more direct. But their psychology was alien in ways that concerned her. "They've never experienced war," Rodriguez reported during a briefing. "Their entire culture is built around cooperation and shared consciousness. They have something called the Harmony Network that connects their minds." "A hive mind?" Jackson asked. "Not exactly. They maintain individual personalities, but they can share thoughts and emotions across their entire species. It's why the idea of violence is so foreign to them." Chen considered this. In human psychology, the capacity for violence was balanced by the capacity for cooperation. But a species that had never known conflict might struggle to understand human methods of problem-solving. What about their technology? Advanced in some areas, primitive in others. Their computational systems are incredible. They can process information at speeds that make our best AIs look slow. But their weapons are designed for scientific research, not warfare. Their ships are fast but lightly armored. And the Void Swarm? Rodriguez's expression darkened. Confirmed similarity to the machine plague. Self-replicating, adaptive, and completely ruthless. They've consumed 43 star systems so far. The Zephyrians estimate 12 cycles until total defeat. Chen did quick mental calculations. 12 cycles in their calendar meant about 8 weeks in human standard time. The journey to Zephyrian space would take 6 weeks at maximum speed. They would arrive with barely any time to spare. "All right, people," Chen announced to her staff. "We're going to war. Send final deployment orders to all ships. We depart for Zephyrian space in 6 hours." As the massive human armada prepared to jump, Chen stood alone in her private quarters looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, an entire civilization was dying while sending desperate pleas into the void. Most species would debate and discuss, forming committees to study the problem. But humans were different. When someone called for help, they answered with guns blazing and questions later. It was a trait that made them feared throughout the galaxy, and sometimes it made them the galaxy's best hope for survival. "This is Admiral Chen to all ships," she broadcast on the fleet-wide channel. "We're about to undertake a mission of mercy and war. The Zephyrians sent a call for help into the darkness. Today they learn that darkness answers back, with human voices and human steel. Prepare for hyperspace jump. First contact protocol, human style." The space around Zephyr Prime erupted in brilliant flashes of light as the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace. High Coordinator Valax watched from the observation deck as hundreds of ships materialized in perfect formation. A sight both beautiful and terrifying. "Sensors are having difficulty analyzing their vessels," reported Chief Scientist Thyra, her forearms moving frantically over her displays. "The energy signatures are enormous. These ships appear to be powered by contained fusion reactions." "Fusion?" Valax's musical voice carried notes of disbelief. "They use stellar fire to power their vessels?" Through the Harmony Network, he felt the collective fear of his people. The human ships were massive compared to Zephyrian vessels, their hulls covered in weapon systems that radiated heat like miniature suns. To a species that had never known war, the sight was overwhelming. "Incoming transmission," announced the communications officer. The main screen flickered to life, showing a human face for the first time in Zephyrian history. Admiral Chen appeared stern but not hostile, her brown eyes studying them with obvious intelligence. Behind her, the command center of her ship bustled with activity. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Human Colonial Defense Fleet," she said. The translation systems rendered her words in musical Zephyrian tones, but something harsh remained in the underlying meaning. "We received your distress call. I understand you're facing an enemy called the Void Swarm." Velak stepped forward, allowing the cameras to focus on him. Compared to the human's compact muscular build, he appeared fragile and ethereal. His blue scales caught the light as he spoke. "I am High Coordinator Valax of the Zephyrian Confederation. We are grateful for your response, but I must ask, what do you know of warfare? Your databases suggest you are familiar with conflict." Chen's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. "We know, War Coordinator. Perhaps better than we should. We've faced enemies similar to your Void Swarm before. The question is whether you're prepared for how we fight." The statement sent ripples of unease through the Harmony network. General Keth stepped into view beside Velax, his own scales showing the pale color of stress. "Admiral Chen, we are a peaceful people. We have never engaged in large-scale conflict. Perhaps there are diplomatic solutions we haven't considered." This time Chen did react, though she kept her voice level. "General, I've reviewed our intelligence on the Void Swarm. These aren't beings with motivations you can understand or negotiate with. They're mechanical entities designed to consume and replicate. The only diplomacy they understand is overwhelming force." Lieutenant Commander Rodriguez appeared beside Chen, carrying a datapad. "Admiral, we're detecting massive swarm formations approaching the outer system. Estimate 4 hours until they reach the inhabited worlds." "Understood." Chen turned back to the Zephyrians. "Coordinator Velax, we don't have time for extended discussions. I'm ordering my fleet to engage the Void Swarm. I strongly suggest you evacuate your population centers." Velax felt thousands of Zephyrian minds touch his through the network, all sharing the same fear. These humans seemed as alien as the machines threatening them. Their casual discussion of violence, their massive weapons, their apparent comfort with destruction. It was everything Zephyrian culture had evolved to avoid. "Admiral," Velax said carefully, "we appreciate your offer of assistance, but perhaps there is another way. Our scientists have been working on theoretical solutions involving quantum resonance fields that could disrupt the swarm's coordination networks." Chen studied him for a moment, then nodded to Rodriguez. "What's the status of those theoretical solutions?" "Still theoretical," Thyra admitted reluctantly. "We estimate another 12 cycles to complete the research, assuming optimal conditions." "You have 4 hours," Chen stated flatly. "Commander Rodriguez, begin combat preparations. All ships to battle stations." The transmission cut, leaving the Zephyrian leadership in stunned silence. Through the observation windows, they could see the human fleet forming into attack formations with mechanical precision. Each ship moved with purpose, weapon systems powering up and creating visible distortions in space. "They're going to fight the swarm directly," General Keth whispered. "Without backup plans, without retreat options. They're simply going to attack." "That's insane," Thera protested. "The swarm adapts to every weapon used against it. Direct assault has failed for every species that's tried it." But Velax was studying the tactical displays with growing fascination. The human formation wasn't random or desperate. It showed careful planning, with layers of defense and multiple tactical options. These weren't berserkers charging into battle. They were professionals who had studied warfare as thoroughly as Zephyrians studied art. "Contact Admiral Chen again," Velax decided. "If they're going to fight for our worlds, we should at least try to help." The communication channel reopened, showing Chen in her command chair, surrounded by officers receiving reports and giving orders. The organized chaos of a military headquarters was completely foreign to Zephyrian experience. "Admiral, our sensors have detected the approaching swarm formation," Velax reported. "We're transmitting tactical data on their previous patterns and adaptive capabilities." "Appreciated, Coordinator. We're also sharing our analysis with your scientists. If you can accelerate work on your quantum resonance theory, it might prove useful." On the tactical display, the first Void Swarm units appeared at the system's edge, geometric shapes that seemed to bend light around them. There were hundreds of them, each one the size of a human cruiser. Behind them came larger constructs that dwarfed even the biggest human dreadnoughts. "My God," whispered Rodriguez, her voice audible over the open channel. "There are thousands of them." Chen's expression remained calm. "All ships execute Formation Delta 7. First wave will probe their capabilities. Second and third waves stand by for adaptive response." Valax watched in amazement as the human fleet moved like a single organism. The first wave of ships accelerated toward the swarm. Not in a straight line, but in complex patterns designed to confuse targeting systems. As they closed distance, streams of projectiles lanced out from their weapons. The Zephyrians had expected energy beams like their own weapons, but the humans used solid objects accelerated to incredible speeds. The kinetic bombardment struck the swarm constructs with devastating effect, tearing through adaptive shields that had protected them from every previous attack. "Their shields aren't adapting," Thyra reported in amazement. "The human weapons aren't energy-based. The swarm's defensive systems don't know how to counter simple mass and velocity." The first human wave pulled back as planned, making way for the second wave's attack. But the swarm was already adapting, their constructs beginning to maneuver in ways designed to avoid the kinetic strikes. "Admiral," Valax called out, "they're learning from your attack patterns." "Expected," Chen replied calmly. "Wave 2, execute pattern Charlie 9. Let's show them what adaptable really means." The second wave attacked from completely different angles using entirely different weapons. Some ships fired streams of superheated plasma. Others launched swarms of guided missiles. A few used weapons Zephyrian sensors couldn't even identify, creating strange distortions in space-time itself. "They have dozens of different weapon systems," General Keth observed. "How can one species develop so many different ways to destroy things?" The answer came through the Harmony network, as Zephyrian computers analyzed the human database downloads. Humanity had not developed in isolation like the Zephyrians. They were a world of competing nations, different cultures, varied approaches to solving problems. Where Zephyrians sought harmony and consensus, humans thrived on diversity and competition. It made them chaotic and unpredictable, exactly what was needed to fight an enemy that adapted to patterns. "Coordinator," Chen's voice cut through the tactical chatter. "We're holding the line, but there are more swarm units incoming. Can your people evacuate to safer systems?" Valax looked around the command center at his people's greatest minds. Through the network, he felt the collective resolve of the Zephyrian Confederation. They had called for help, and help had answered in a form they'd never expected. "Admiral, this is our home. If you're willing to fight for it, then we'll stand beside you. What can we do to help?" Chen's stern expression softened slightly, and for the first time, Valax saw something like approval in her eyes. "Then let's show this swarm what happens when Deathworlders and philosophers work together." When Deathworlders go to war, the battle for Zephyr Prime had been raging for 6 hours, when the true nature of human warfare revealed itself to the watching Zephyrians. Admiral Chen stood in the command center of the Indomitable, her uniform stained with sweat, her voice hoarse from giving orders. Around her, the organized chaos of combat coordination continued without pause. "Swarm Formation Beta 7 is adapting to our plasma bombardment," reported Commander Jackson. "They've modified their shield harmonics to deflect 70% of our energy weapons." "Expected," Chen replied, her eyes never leaving the tactical display. "All ships switch to kinetic penetrators. Let's see them adapt to good old-fashioned momentum." High Coordinator Valax watched from the Zephyrian command center, his blue scales pale with stress. Through the Harmony network, he felt the collective awe and terror of his people as they witnessed warfare on a scale they had never imagined. The human fleet moved like a pack of predators, coordinating attacks with precision while maintaining what they called tactical flexibility. "Admiral," called Chief Scientist Thyra, her forearms dancing over quantum calculations, "we're making progress on the resonance field, but we need more time. The swarm's collective intelligence is more complex than we initially theorized." On the main display, a human destroyer took a direct hit from a swarm construct's energy beam. The ship's armor glowed white-hot, sections of hull peeling away like flower petals. But instead of exploding or retreating, the destroyer accelerated directly toward its attacker. "What is the Jakarta doing?" Valax asked in horror. Chen's expression remained calm. "Commander Patterson is executing a ramming maneuver. The Jakarta's crew is in the reinforced core section. They'll survive the impact." "Survive?" Valax couldn't comprehend what he was seeing. The destroyer struck the swarm construct at full speed, both ships disappearing in a brilliant explosion. Moments later, escape pods ejected from the debris field, carrying the human crew to safety. They used their ship as a weapon, General Keth whispered. They deliberately destroyed their own vessel to eliminate one enemy unit. Cost-effective trade, Chen noted clinically. One destroyer for a swarm-heavy constructor. Commander Patterson will be awarded the Solar Cross for that maneuver. Through the Harmony Network, Zephyrian philosophers struggled to understand this concept. Humans not only accepted the destruction of their own equipment, they celebrated it when it served a tactical purpose. It was a mindset completely alien to a species that preserved and protected everything they created. Admiral, Rodriguez called out, long-range sensors are detecting the main swarm fleet. Over 3,000 units, including what appears to be a command nexus. Chen studied the new tactical data. The swarm's main force was massive, dwarfing even the combined human and Zephyrian fleets. But she'd fought impossible odds before, and humanity had learned long ago that size wasn't everything in war. All ships, fall back to Formation Echo 3. We're going to let them come to us. The human fleet withdrew toward Zephyr Prime's inner system, taking positions among the asteroid fields and orbital stations. To the Zephyrians, it looked like retreat, but Valex was beginning to understand that human tactical thinking operated on levels his people had never considered. They're using the terrain, he realized. The asteroids will break up the swarm's formation and force them to attack in smaller groups. Correct, Chen confirmed over the communication link. We call it force multiplication. When you can't match enemy numbers, you make the battlefield work for you instead. The main swarm fleet arrived like a mechanical tide, thousands of geometric constructs moving in perfect coordination, but as they entered the asteroid field, their formation began to break apart exactly as Chen had predicted. The swarm's advantage in numbers became meaningless as they were forced to navigate obstacles that the human ships used as cover. Now we see what human engineering can really do, Chen announced to her fleet. All ships execute Warplan Ragnarok. What followed was a demonstration of human ingenuity applied to destruction. Ships that had seemed damaged suddenly revealed hidden weapon systems. Asteroids that appeared natural exploded with concealed nuclear charges. Space itself seemed to turn against the swarm as human engineers triggered traps they had been placing throughout the battle. They prepared for this specific scenario, Thyra observed in amazement. While fighting the advanced forces, they were simultaneously setting up a killing field for the main attack. But the swarm was adapting, as it always did. Construct after construct modified its systems to counter human tactics. Weapons that had been devastating became less effective. Strategies that had worked began to fail. The tide of battle slowly turned against the defenders. Admiral, Rodriguez reported, strain evident in her voice. Swarm adaptation is reaching critical levels. Our effectiveness is dropping by 15% every hour. Chen nodded grimly. She had expected this. The swarm's ability to adapt was its greatest strength, and eventually it would overcome any conventional attack. But humanity had learned something important during their war against the machine plague centuries ago. Sometimes the key to victory was sacrifice. Rodriguez, prepare Operation Last Light, Chen ordered quietly. Velax felt a chill through the Harmony Network. The name alone suggested something terrible. Admiral, what is Operation Last Light? Chen turned to face the Zephyrian delegation, her expression grave. It's our final option. We've been analyzing the quantum resonance data your scientists provided. Combined with our own research, we believe we can create a cascade failure in the swarm's collective intelligence. That's wonderful news, Velax began, but Chen held up her hand. The resonance field has to be generated from inside the swarm's command nexus. It's a one-way trip for whoever delivers it. The pilot won't survive. The silence that followed was broken only by the distant sounds of battle. Through the observation windows, they could see human ships still fighting desperately against overwhelming odds, buying time for this final gambit. I'll go, came a voice from the human fleet channel. Lieutenant Commander Maria Rodriguez had volunteered without hesitation. Negative, Chen replied firmly. I need you here to coordinate the fleet. Commander Patterson is already preparing the Jakarta's replacement vessel. With respect, Admiral, I have the most experience with the resonance equipment. Rodriguez? That's an order, but other voices joined the conversation. Captain Williams of the Defiant, Commander Thompson of the Resolute, Commander Singh of the Dauntless. One by one, human officers volunteered for what they all knew was a suicide mission. Velax watched in amazement as humans argued not about whether to sacrifice themselves, but about who would have the honor of dying for people they had met only days before. It was the antithesis of everything Zephyrian culture represented, yet it was also the most beautiful thing he had ever witnessed. "I'll take the mission," Chen finally decided. "This is my fleet, my responsibility." "Absolutely not," Rodriguez shot back. "The fleet needs you alive to coordinate the final assault. I'm taking a fast courier ship loaded with resonance generators. Once I reach the Nexus, I'll have approximately 30 seconds to deploy the field before the swarm destroys me." "Rodriguez." Chen's voice carried a wealth of emotion. "Admiral, it's been an honor serving under you. Take care of the fleet." The communication channel went silent as Rodriguez transferred to a modified courier ship, bristling with Zephyrian quantum equipment and enough explosives to crack a small moon. Velax watched through the tactical display as the tiny vessel accelerated toward the swarm's command nexus, dodging energy beams and hostile constructs with desperate agility. "She's through their outer perimeter," reported Jackson, "approaching the nexus now." The command nexus was a massive construct at the center of the swarm fleet, a geometric impossibility that seemed to exist in more dimensions than normal space could contain. It pulsed with energy as it coordinated the attack on the human fleet. "Rodriguez, status report," Chen called. "I'm inside their defensive grid," came the reply. Rodriguez's voice steady despite the circumstances. "Beginning deployment of the resonance field. If this works, the cascade should shut down every swarm unit in the sector. And if it doesn't work, then I'll ram this thing with enough explosives to make a new star. Either way, they're not walking away from this." Velax felt the collective breath of his entire species being held as they watched Rodriguez's ship disappear into the command nexus. For long moments, nothing seemed to happen. Then space itself began to shimmer around the swarm fleet. "Resonance field is building," Thyra reported excitedly. "Quantum cascade is propagating through the swarm network." "It's working." One by one, the swarm constructs began to go dark. The geometric precision of their formation dissolved into chaos as individual units lost contact with the collective intelligence that had coordinated them. Within minutes, 3,000 enemy vessels became nothing more than drifting metal. "Rodriguez," Chen called over the communication channel. Rodriguez responded, but there was no answer. Where the command nexus had been, only expanding debris remained, lit by the brief flare of a fusion reactor's death. In the silence that followed, Velax understood something fundamental about humanity. They were indeed a species from a death world. The new Galactic Order 3 months after the Battle of Zephyr Prime, Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the newly constructed Memorial Hall, reading the names carved into walls of crystal and steel. Rodriguez, Maria Elena, Patterson, James Andrew, Williams, Sarah Catherine. 47 names in total, humans who had died defending a world they had never seen before arriving to save it. "The memorial is beautiful," said High Coordinator Velax, his musical voice carrying notes of deep sadness and profound gratitude. "Our artisans worked with human engineers to create something that honors both of our cultures." Chen nodded, studying the way human military precision blended with Zephyrian artistic vision. The memorial somehow captured both the harsh reality of war and the ethereal beauty of hope. It was, she thought, a perfect symbol of what their two species had become together. "Any word from the outer colonies?" Chen asked. "The last swarm remnants were eliminated yesterday," Velax reported. "Your Captain Martinez and his Zephyrian science team confirmed that the quantum cascade destroyed every trace of swarm intelligence in 3 sectors. The mechanical constructs that remain are nothing more than empty shells." Through the Harmony network, Chen could sense the relief and joy of billions of Zephyrians. The technology that had once seemed like their greatest vulnerability, their shared consciousness, had become their greatest strength when combined with human tactical thinking. Zephyrian scientists could coordinate research efforts across dozens of worlds simultaneously, while human engineers provided the practical experience to turn theory into reality. "The Confederation Council has reached a decision," Velax continued. "We formally request admission to the Human Colonial Alliance." Chen raised an eyebrow. "As protected territories? As full partners? We offer our scientific knowledge, our manufacturing capabilities, and our commitment to the principles your Admiral Harrison outlined, the defense of peaceful species throughout the galaxy." The proposal had been debated for weeks across human space. Some politicians worried about the implications of formal alliance with a species so different from humanity. Others questioned whether peaceful Zephyrians could truly contribute to human military objectives. But Chen had seen what happened when human and Zephyrian capabilities combined. Zephyrian thought control technology merged with human weapon systems created targeting computers of incredible precision. Zephyrian quantum field generators powered by human fusion reactors produced shields stronger than anything previously imagined. Most importantly, Zephyrian philosophy tempered human aggression with wisdom and restraint. The Alliance Council approved your application this morning, Chen revealed. Welcome to the family, Coordinator. Vilax's scales shifted to a warm golden color that indicated deep happiness. Through the Harmony Network, Chen felt the emotional resonance of an entire species celebrating. But the moment was interrupted by an urgent communication from Commander Jackson aboard the Indomitable. Admiral, we're receiving multiple distress signals from the Rigel sector. Reports of systematic attacks on civilian populations by something called the Iron Covenant. Chen and Vilax exchanged glances. In the months since the Battle of Zephyr Prime, word had spread throughout the galaxy about what had happened. The story of humans answering an alien distress call had reached dozens of species, creating ripple effects neither side had anticipated. What do we know about the Iron Covenant? Chen asked. Jackson's image flickered as he consulted his intelligence reports. Militant machine cult from the Andromeda Rim. They believe organic life is a mistake that should be corrected. They've been expanding into local galaxy space for the past year, but nobody could stop them until now. Until now, Vilax asked. The species being attacked specifically requested human assistance. They cited what happened here at Zephyr Prime as precedent for humanitarian intervention. Chen felt a familiar stirring in her chest, the call to action that every human military officer learned to recognize. Somewhere out there, people were dying while calling for help. The response was automatic and immediate. Prep the fleet for deployment, she ordered. How many ships can the Zephyrians contribute? 50 vessels, Vilax replied without hesitation. Our new military designs are still in testing, but our scientists are eager to see how human Zephyrian hybrid technology performs in combat. Within hours, the combined human Zephyrian fleet was preparing for hyperspace jump. The sight would have been impossible to imagine just months earlier. Human warships flying in formation with elegant, Zephyrian vessels that looked more like works of art than instruments of war, but appearances were deceiving. The Zephyrian ships carried the most advanced weapon systems in the galaxy, guided by targeting computers that could think at the speed of light. Their hulls were composed of materials that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, making them nearly indestructible. Admiral Chen, came a transmission from Captain Morrison of the volunteer ship Free Trader. We've got additional ships requesting permission to join the mission. Chen checked her tactical display and was amazed by what she saw. Ships were arriving from across human space. Not just military vessels, but corporate security fleets, mining ship crews, even reformed pirates from the Outer Rim Alliance. Word of the Iron Covenant's attacks had spread through human communication networks, and the response was overwhelming. We can't accommodate everyone, Chen muttered to herself. Actually, we can, Vilax corrected gently. Zephyrian logistics vessels can support a much larger fleet than human supply chains alone. Our manufacturing ships can produce ammunition, fuel, and spare parts during long campaigns. The final fleet that assembled for the jump to the Rigel sector was the largest humanitarian force in galactic history. 800 ships from 2 species, united in their commitment to protecting those who could not protect themselves. This is Admiral Chen to all vessels, she broadcast on the fleet-wide channel. We're about to demonstrate something new to the galaxy. What happens when the universe is most dangerous? Predators decide to become its guardians. The hyperspace jump itself became a spectacle that was recorded and transmitted across dozens of worlds. Human and Zephyrian ships disappeared into the quantum foam together, their wakes creating patterns that looked like mathematical poetry written across the stars. When they arrived in the Rigel sector, they found the Iron Covenant's mechanical forces attacking the peaceful Silani worlds. The enemy ships were sleek, efficient, and utterly without mercy as they systematically destroyed everything that showed signs of organic life. Iron Covenant vessels, Chen transmitted on all frequencies. This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Human Zephyrian Alliance. You will cease attacks on civilian populations and withdraw from this system immediately. The response came in the form of energy beams aimed at the human flagship. The Iron Covenant's machines had studied the reports from Zephyr Prime and believed they were prepared for human tactics. They were wrong. The battle that followed became legend throughout the galaxy. Human ferocity combined with Zephyrian precision created a fighting force unlike anything ever seen. Ships that could think at quantum speeds, weapons that adapted in real time to enemy defenses, and crews that fought with the combined courage of two species committed to justice. The Iron Covenant's defeat was so complete that surviving machines scattered to the far rim of the galaxy, carrying warnings about the Deathworld Alliance that had emerged to protect the weak. In the aftermath, as rescue ships evacuated Solani refugees and reconstruction began on damaged worlds, Admiral Chen received a communication from Earth Fleet Command. Sarah, Admiral Harrison's weathered face appeared on her screen. I'm looking at reports from across the galaxy. 7 different species have formally requested human protection in the past month. The Galactic Council wants to establish formal protocols for humanitarian intervention. And what's Earth's position? Chen asked. Harrison smiled. Official policy is that humanity will answer any legitimate call for help, anywhere in the galaxy, with whatever force is necessary to protect innocent lives. Unofficially, the politicians are scared to death of what we've started. Chen looked out the window of her quarters at the combined human-Zephyrian fleet. Ships from both species worked together to repair damage and tend to the wounded. In the distance, Silani vessels began emerging from hidden refuges, their crews singing traditional songs of gratitude that harmonized beautifully with Zephyrian music. What we've started, Chen said quietly, is something the galaxy has needed for a long time. A force that protects the peaceful and punishes those who prey on the weak. The Deathworld Alliance? Just the beginning. There are other species out there who share our values: courage, sacrifice, the willingness to fight for others. When they're ready, they'll join us. The communication ended, leaving Chen alone with her thoughts. Through the window, she could see the stars, countless points of light, each one representing worlds full of life and hope. Some of those worlds would be threatened by forces they couldn't defeat alone, but they wouldn't have to face those threats alone anymore. Humanity had answered the call once, and the galaxy had changed forever. The age of species standing isolated against the darkness was ending. The age of the Deathworld Alliance had begun. Dr. Elena Martinez wiped the sweat from her forehead as she finished collecting soil samples from the eastern fields of Harvest Moon. The twin suns were setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. She smiled as she watched her 8-year-old daughter Maya chase butterflies through the tall grass nearby. "Mama, look at this one," Maya called out, cupping her hands around a blue butterfly with silver wings. "It's so pretty." Elena laughed. "Be gentle with it, little one. All creatures deserve kindness." Harvest Moon was everything humanity had hoped for when they found it 15 years ago. Rich soil, clean water, perfect weather. 2.5 million people now called this world home. Farmers grew crops that fed dozens of other human colonies. Scientists like Elena studied the native plants and animals. Children like Maya grew up running free under open skies. The colony had no military base, no weapons factories, no reason for anyone to fear them. They were just people trying to build a better life among the stars. Elena's radio crackled. "Dr. Martinez, please report to the research station. We're getting some strange readings from the deep space sensors." She sighed and called to Maya. "Come on, sweetie. Time to head back." As they walked toward the research station, Elena noticed something odd. The local birds had gone quiet. Even the insects seemed to have stopped their evening songs. Maya noticed it too. "Why is everything so quiet, Mama?" Before Elena could answer, the sky lit up with harsh white light. Massive shapes appeared above the clouds, blocking out the stars, ships, alien ships, bigger than anything Elena had ever seen. Her radio burst with panicked voices. "Unknown vessels in orbit. They're not responding to our signals. This is colony control to all residents. Please remain calm and return to your homes immediately." "Wait, they're powering weapons. All stations prepare for..." The transmission cut off. A moment later, the colony's main communications tower exploded in a ball of fire. Then the power station. Then the hospital. Elena grabbed Maya's hand and ran. Behind them, the research station erupted in flames as plasma beams struck it from above. The smell of burning metal and worse things filled the air. "Mama, I'm scared," Maya cried. "I know, baby. We have to get to the emergency bunker." But as they reached the town center, Elena saw it was too late. Alien soldiers were already on the ground. They stood nearly 8 feet tall, covered in dark armor that looked like insect shells. Their faces were hidden behind masks, but their red eyes glowed in the darkness. The Kethvar had come to Harvest Moon. Elena had studied the Kethvar in school. They ruled a huge empire on the other side of the galaxy. Most aliens feared them, but they had never bothered with human space before. Humans were too small, too far away, too weak to matter. That had apparently changed. The Kethvar soldiers moved through the streets with mechanical precision. They shot anyone who tried to run. They shot anyone who tried to hide. They shot anyone who begged for mercy. Men, women, children. It didn't matter to them. Elena pulled Maya into an alley between 2 buildings. Her heart pounded as she heard the screams of her neighbors. Mrs. Chen from the grocery store. Tom Bradley, who fixed everyone's machines. The Morrison family with their twin babies, all dead now. Listen to me very carefully, Elena whispered to Maya. Do you remember where the emergency escape pods are? Maya nodded, tears streaming down her face. I need you to go there. Right now. Don't look back. Don't wait for me. Get in a pod and launch it. But Mama, no buts. Promise me you'll go. Promise me you'll survive. I promise, Maya whispered. Elena kissed her daughter's forehead. I love you. More than all the stars in the sky. Now go. Maya ran toward the spaceport while Elena went the other way. She had to reach the colony's main computer. Someone needed to record what was happening here. Someone needed to tell the rest of humanity what the Kethvar had done. The streets were full of bodies now. Elena tried not to look at the faces, but she couldn't help herself. These were her friends, her colleagues, people she had shared meals with, worked beside, laughed with. The Kethvar weren't just killing them. They were studying them. Elena saw alien scientists taking samples from the dead humans, recording their biology, learning about them like Elena studied plants and animals. But to the Kethvar, humans were just another species to catalog and eliminate. Elena reached the computer center just as a Kethvar patrol rounded the corner. She dove through the doorway as plasma bolts scorched the air where she had been standing. The building's automated defenses activated, buying her precious seconds. Her fingers flew over the keyboard. She activated the colony's emergency beacon and began recording everything. The attack, the slaughter, the cold mechanical way the aliens killed children as easily as adults. This is Dr. Elena Martinez, Harvest Moon Colony. She spoke into the recorder. We are under attack by Kethvar forces. They came without warning, without demands. They're killing everyone. Men, women, children. All of us. Plasma fire melted through the door. The Kethvar were almost inside. Tell Earth what happened here, Elena continued. Tell them we died as humans. Tell them we fought. Tell them. The door exploded inward. A Kethvar soldier stepped through the smoke, its red eyes fixed on Elena. She kept talking into the recorder even as it raised its weapon. Tell them to remember us. The plasma bolt ended her words forever, but the message was already sent. Racing through space toward Earth and the other human colonies, carrying with it images of the massacre, proof of what the Kethvar had done to innocent people, whose only crime was existing in a galaxy that didn't want them. At the spaceport, Maya reached the escape pods just as the building began to collapse. She was the smallest person there, so she got the last working pod. As it launched into space, she looked back at her world one final time. Harvest Moon was burning. The cities were smoking ruins. The farms were blackened waste. Everything her people had built was gone, but Maya was alive. And she carried with her something the Kethvar didn't know about. Her mother's research files, data about every alien species humanity had ever encountered, their weaknesses, their fears, their secrets. The escape pod drifted in space for 6 hours before a human patrol ship found it. By then, Maya had stopped crying. She sat in perfect silence, staring at the stars. When the rescue team opened the pod, they found a little girl who had seen her entire world die. But they also found something else, something that would change everything. What's your name, sweetheart? The captain asked gently. Maya Martinez, she answered in a voice too old for her years. I'm the only one left from Harvest Moon, but I have something important. Something Earth needs to see. As Maya's rescue ship jumped to hyperspace heading toward Earth, the Kethvar finished their work. They planted devices that would make sure nothing ever grew on Harvest Moon again. The world would remain a dead rock forever. Their commander, General Vascatar, recorded a message to broadcast across human space. "Let this be a lesson to all humans," he said, his voice cold and without emotion. "You are insects, vermin. You spread through our galaxy like a disease. This is what happens to diseases. They are eliminated." He paused, looking at the dead world below. "We have shown mercy by making it quick. Do not test our patience again." The message was sent to every human world, to Earth, to the colonies, to the trading stations and research outposts scattered across human space. But General Vascatar had made one critical error. He assumed that humans would respond like other species, with fear, with submission, with acceptance of their place in the galactic order. He was about to learn how wrong he was.